Now, let's talk about AI. Everyone's experimenting with AI, but not everyone's seeing results.
Optimization is definitely important, but transformation is really what matters. If you think about it, it's how you can make AI what I would call your decision maker partner. Just with a click. The whole presentation was translated into Arabic with the right alignment, and we end up translating the whole proposition. And the client felt that we care. When you deal with clients, don't push your products or service. Live with your clients. Understand their pain points. Be their partner.
And that's exactly why I started AI4Sales Edge, to cut through the noise and show what real transformation looks like when people, process, and AI comes together. They call him Agent of Change, strategist with vision, a closure with results. He's partnered with PwC Middle East and leads the firm's consulting practice in Egypt. With more than 28 years of experience across the Middle East and Europe, he's been at the forefront of helping organizations transform, from shaping strategy all the way through to execution. He's known for leading large-scale transformation program, building new markets from the ground up, and delivering measurable impacts for clients. Before joining PwC, he held key roles with leading consulting firms like Anderson and E&Y, as well as global technology giants such as Oracle and SAP. He's passionate about helping organizations turn bold ideas into tangible results and creating lasting value through innovation and collaboration. This is Walid Elsayed, the Agent of Change. Welcome, Walid. Thank you for being here on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Walid, you've been called Agent of Change in big organizations. What does it mean in your work?
So being an agent of a change means to me, how can I help organizations move from where they are today into what they would envision in the future? And more importantly, it's not just on paper, in practice. So this can include, for example, guiding complex teams into these type of transformations. It can basically be like shaping how they want to serve their customers, how they want to adapt new technologies, or even basically create new capabilities within their organization. And throughout my journey with these type of organizations, I've noticed that it's not just about systems. It's about the culture. It's about the people. It's about the mindset. And what makes me really proud throughout this is that how I see these type of strategies turn into life. I'm proud of things that I can see throughout these years spending in the Middle East. I've seen how transformation took place in the Dubai government, Abu Dhabi government, Ras Al Khaimah government, Qatar, for example, a number of oil and gas companies, a number of banks in Egypt and across the sector. And seeing that on my daily life makes me proud and makes me feel that I have been part of this.
That's awesome. And then bring us right into sales. So, because even when we are solving the real problem and deals look solid on paper, revenue targets keep getting tougher. So why are so many organizations missing revenue targets, even when their pipelines looks healthy? And also, what's the hidden reason behind deals that drag instead to close? And how leaders can spot those early signals so they can react accordingly?
Yes. So what happened is that, we've been managing pipelines for many organizations throughout my career. And there is something that, things can look very nice in your system or your CRM and all of that. Everybody looks happy. But what I usually look for is what I call a true momentum. And this is not just about, that you have the right solutions or your proposals. It's more about the alignment. Is the organization internally, from sales leaders to sales, to pre-sales, to solution delivery, are these people aligned towards one vision, which is basically how we can take our client from where they from where they are into where they want to be. And this is basically, for me, how I can see it internally. But also, more importantly, you have to make sure that this type of momentum is on the client side. Is the client, for example, aligned on their vision? I have seen so many examples where, for example, the leadership has a vision and basically the department heads, or for example, the leaders in the various branches, for example, when I talk about banks, they are basically totally disconnected. And I would like always to ask the executive, how many time do you spend a day in these type of alignments? So the conclusion for me is when I don't see this type of true momentum, this is for me a signal that I need to intervene. This is for me a signal that something is wrong. And I'm saying this whether on the client side or whether internally within the organization who are trying to deliver these type of solutions to their clients.
Yes. Now, let's step into the ROI dilemma. So today, every CFO asks the same thing. What's the measurable impact? So how do you prove ROI early when the real value only shows up months later?
Okay. This is a very challenging aspect. And I cannot tell you the countless times that we have these questions coming from clients and the struggle that we face at the back with our organization trying to come up with something. But my experience showed me that, especially at the beginning, and knowing that each customer is unique in his own way, it turns to me that if you want to do all of these type of flashy presentations about ROIs and all of that, whether you have it from your archives or whatever that you have built throughout the years for different clients, it simply doesn't work. What really works, especially at the beginning, is when you define what I call the indicators of success. And these indicators is something not necessarily that it has to be measured financially, but also something like, for example, I want to achieve better decision making. I want to have a better streamlined processes. I want to have faster go-to-market for my clients. Now, setting that is the first step. Because basically you're setting the mindset for something to them that both of you can achieve. And this is a great formula. You have to make sure that ROI is something that both parties are participating in to make sure that they deliver to the same goal. Now, how we can basically convince those customers that, listen, I need to see some numbers. So we do that as well. But you have to do it in a way that is something that they can understand and grasp. So, for example, it's easier sometimes to show, for example, the return on investment when you sell a software. The challenge when you're selling a service. Selling a service sometimes can be challenging because you're basically selling ideas, And so what to do when you sell service to your clients is basically, beside the things that I have mentioned, it's very important that you notice that getting or benchmarking your client with similar type of environments, similar type of clients who are facing the same challenges is half the formula. So it's good for him to see that, listen, I can trust you. I have seen this client and I've seen this customer delivering similar type of results. But you also have to acknowledge that, listen, this doesn't mean that we're going to achieve this, but this is an indication that if we build the right formula between trust, between the right team, between basically having all of these elements working together, there is a very high chance that we can achieve, the outcomes that you seek to achieve. And I think in most of the cases, I have noticed that this is a very working formula and much more realistic because it shows how sort of practical you are instead of just selling them dreams and not achieving those dreams. One more thing that I want to highlight is when you structure your projects and delivery, it's very essential that you also define milestones. Mm-hmm. That milestones can help them realize that there is an achievement as you go. Yeah, and realistically speaking, it's all about progress. I mean, people need to feel there is progress. And you need to be able, as a person who delivers this type of vision, that to help them throughout the way and as much as early on, achieving these small steps so they build more confidence into you or your solution or whatever, and of course would take us to where we aim to achieve.
So those small steps are actually those measurable results that we can share
Absolutely.
to CFO.
So you have basically to do this. You have to make sense out of that. And what I always advise, and this is something basically with mature customers, is that listen, we're gonna start with this. This is our plan, and the more we know you, the more we see these challenges, the more we're going to go back and define our ROI in a way that is much more realistic. And by the way, this type of dynamics build even more trust, and at the same time make everybody on the same pace, because everybody now start realizing that we're working towards one goal.
Very valid point, Walid. But now tell me, what is the smart way to de-risk deal, but in the same time not to discount value?
Okay, so de-risking deals, definitely there can be so many things to answer your question. And sometimes, the risk comes by nature in our business. So for example, customers are dreaming. They are basically they want to sort of like boil the oceans to achieve sometimes unrealistic dreams. There can be, for example, limited budgets. So there can be so many things, and when I think about that, what I would like basically to consider is to de-risk something, you should really understand what are the risks. And for you to understand the risk, there are a lot of things that you have to do. You have basically to, of course, to build trust so the client can tell you what are the risks are, because most clients will not really, communicate that. So what I usually advise is the following. Spend some time with your clients at the beginning. Make sure that you are a trusted advisor to them. Make sure that you understand their pain points. You understand their challenges. You understand the risks. Because sometimes, and I have seen that so many times, people sort of inflate their value. Organizations, whether they are selling software or selling service, they sometimes inflate their values because of risks that do not exist. And sometimes they basically, the client will be shocked. How come, this is not me, I'm not that. And the minute that you start having this clarity, this type of conversation, and you figure out, listen, it's not the same way that I figured it because I didn't understand your risks to start with. So it sounds easy, but it's not. And what I always advise, understand the pain points, understand the risk, be real in your estimation. And once the client feel this type of connection, that you really understand him, I don't think that the value would be clear to him. And in that case, we're not going to go into a cycle of discounts, but rather than shaping what value suits him best with the minimum risks. And that, I guess, from my experience, is more of a practical advice. I usually advise my teams and advise even the clients, with the same. So all of us would be on the same mindset.
Yeah, on the same page. So when have you had to completely restructure a deal, and what did it teach you about adaptability?
Adaptability is key in our business. You have to be agile. You have to be agile, you have to be dynamic, and you have to think on your toes. And this is, by the way, the reality of the business. And whether you're selling, as I told you, technology, a piece of technology, or you are, as I mentioned, selling service. So I'll give you an example, because this is how I believe that real examples can get people closer to what I'm trying to communicate. Now, there has been a major transformation with a bank in the Middle East, a huge bank. So many branches, and this bank invested so much into technology. However, they had a couple of main issues. The first part is that internal politics. The top executives, they are not as aligned, and unfortunately, when you sit in front of them in a table, everybody's happy, but when you leave and everyone take you, start, talking, unfortunately, badly about others. But I would summarize this into internal politics and conflict of interest in the client environment. So these type of things, the customer at the beginning said, okay, I want to bring you, so basically you can drive the PMO. Now, for me, that was basically when I saw this type of challenge, I thought, listen, this is really, I want to show them really how can I help them?
Okay.
And how can I help them differently? Because when I observe all of these things in their context, I discovered that, listen, it's not just PMO. It's much more than that. First, there is a lot of change management need to take place for this client to implement the core banking solution, because this was like a core banking solution that they want to implement. With the current skill set within the bank, it's not going to work. So it's not anymore PMO and quality assurance. No, it's much more that. Listen, these guys are not clear about the roadmap. Okay. So you have to do something about it. There is a bit of chaos. So we need to do something different, and what I call establish something called design authority to basically govern the whole, project. And at the same time, they need people. Most of the clients are basically between 60s and late 50s. And this is a dynamic project that requires different type of, players and different type of caliber to drive this type of transformation. So at the end, instead of just setting this as a PMO, I basically set the engagement, and of course, through creating the proper level of awareness, it was about like 4 to 6 month cycle, where basically we set up a PMO. We told them that we're going to have a quality assurance with subject matter experts from the business as well as from technology. We're going to create something called design authority to establish a governance. We also told them that, listen, we're going to help you create a roadmap for the next 5 years. And not only will do this, we're also helping you set up a center of excellence with fresh grads, with fresh type of caliber, not just grads, but also senior people that we're going to bring to your organization. And by the way, we're going to take care of helping you hiring them, because finding these people was not easy. And everybody in the consulting world understand that doing this, interviewing and getting into something that typically an HR would do, is very challenging piece. But when I package all of this, and I package it in a way that is not as expensive, but still meeting their expectations, it turns out that for the first time, they realize that, listen, this is what it means to transform. Okay. And this is where I was spending this time, not just pitching for them an idea, but convincing them that this is the vehicle for transformation. This is the vehicle for change. And only by looking at all aspects within the organization, you'll be able to succeed. And a testament...
Just to, so they wanted PM or quality assurance, and actually you show them where are those loopholes or what they need to fix, and they need much more than quality assurance.
Absolutely.
So beside transformation, you did the upsell as well.
No, exactly. But that's the thing. It was never upsell. I mean, it sounds from outside that I'm trying to upsell. But the key ingredients for this to succeed is basically you're telling them that, listen, these are your problems. And I feel your problems. I feel your pain. And I'm not going to charge you more. No, I'm going to help you basically achieve where you want to go with the right way. And this, I'm not going to say this is definitely eliminated competition, but at the same time, for them, for the first time, and I know the CEO came to me and told me, Walid, for the first time ever, I can say that I can trust the consultant because you make things for me clear. You told me how I'm going to basically align my executives around the same vision. It's not anymore that I need your stamp. It's more of a partnership that you're going to take me through this journey into achieving. And by the way, this was a very complex project. And we finished this in 2 years. Whereas smaller type of clients who started the same journey took them 7 years.
Wow.
With the typical approach. A PMO, get all the vendors, all of that, this type of consortiums, people are not talking to each other.
So they follow, actually, all others follow the logic how should be something done.
Exactly.
But actually you came there and told them, listen, we need to do it differently.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
point where nobody likes to point, and those are the risk, the problems that even they don't know.
Yes. I mean, and I'll tell you for a fact. I mean, and I have to do this separately, not with all of them at once, because you also have to understand.
So you need to play politics inside
exactly. You have
the
to
organization.
live their life. And this is what I'm saying. Where you're talking about change, you have to live your client life to help them to change. If you're always thinking about selling, then you're not selling. And I know for a fact that this project, it became a success story. And I guess that one of the greatest success stories, because of the so many challenges that we have to face and overcome. And I know at the beginning, at one point, I said to the CEO something, and that was bold. But sometimes you have to also to be bold if you believe in your vision. I told them, listen, if you want someone just to do a PMO to sort out the sort of like the noise within the executive, you can bring anyone but not me. And I'm willing to leave this room right now if you actually sort of disagree of what I'm telling you, or you feel that what I'm offering you is not the right solution for you. And that was completely where the relationship completely changed. And we became partners till today.
Of course. I mean, great story. Now, let's talk about AI. Because everyone's experimenting with AI, but not everyone's seeing results. So where do you see AI creating real impact in sales execution right now? So real stories, real results, no hype.
Okay. So the first thing that I would say when it comes to AI is where most of the people struggle is the setting priorities, Okay. So the thing is, if you want to really target clients, you have to make sure that you set the right priorities, target the right clients. It's not just about I want to go and start testing the waters and all of that. So today, with the information that we have about companies, and by the way, this might work more, in certain countries within the Middle East, might not work in others. And why is that? Because AI works best when you have that plenty of information that can help make these type of decisions. So the first part I would think is basically would be great at setting the priorities and the targeting phase of the sales execution cycle. Now, where it basically helps more is when you start targeting and you want to, for example, shape certain solutions that fits your client needs. Okay. And I guess this is another thing during the sales execution that basically where most of the sales reps and the organization need to spend more time. And should we have an AI that, with the right level of information, help and guide the sales reps and guide the sales team throughout that process, so they can pitch the right message, so they can basically map the right type of products or solutions to their client based on their needs. I think this is where we can create an impact, in this scenario.
Okay, now tell me, is it more valuable to target smarter or closing faster? Is it AI more valuable to target smarter than closing faster?
So that depends on a lot of things. And I think we should look into both, because targeting smarter is essential,
I agree.
But you cannot also leave the closure part, because the closure is not really that last mile that you deal with your client. It's the journey, So if you look at that from that perspective, I'll flip your question. I will say that if I would basically close faster, but I'm not aiming properly, so the speed doesn't matter, right? So there is some sort of connection between smart targeting and as well closing faster, but you should not ignore what we just covered in the previous question about the execution cycle. So once we have all of these pieces of the puzzle connected together, I think we're going to achieve great results.
Okay, now I often say business that treats AI as a tech, optimize, but leaders who are treating AI as intelligence transform. So what's your take on leaders who still treat AI as a cost-cutting tool?
I think what you just said is, by the way, is common. A lot of the executives that I meet, they are basically think of cost cutting, and especially recently with the changes that we have seen, the budget cuts and all of that, everybody's thinking, okay, maybe I can just replace a couple of guys with an AI that he can do this. However, they are missing the big picture, So to achieve these results, you have to transform. Optimization is definitely important, but transformation is really what matters. And if you think about it, it's how you can make AI what I would call your decision maker partner. And that's when you think with this mindset, you start basically working on what really matters to you as an organization. So, for example, if you want to optimize cost, yes, you can do that within a sales organization. And right now, there are some sales organizations, what they have done in the past couple of years is that they are using AI to generate proposals. Sounds easy, right? Because they have the content from one side, and what they can do, they can go and tell the AI agent, listen, these are the requirements of the customer, these are the pain points.
Yeah, and is it the point of the AI?
It helps. It helps. I mean, it helps, but this is where I would say it can save time. But the question is saving time really what you want to serve your customer better? Yes, it can be part of the process.
I mean, it helps, but we are going about transformation. So.
Absolutely. So I want to give you another example now, just to compare. Mm-hmm. So the first scenario that I just mentioned can be interesting in cost cutting, because in that case, for example, within certain organizations, you might not need a bed center. We'll basically deal with that. I can automate the process. So this is cost cutting aspect. Let's take this from a different angle. And let's take this as an example from the client side. If you see, and we have seen this in many places, like in the US and Canada, some of these retail brands, what they do, they try to leverage the information that they have, use AI to generate what I would call a personalized experience. So, for example, you walk into the store and all of a sudden you got things so specific to you, as if this AI agent is basically somebody who's living with you. Listen, these are the products that you need for you. These are sort of like the type of food that you would be good for you to eat. So there is a personalized experience. And think from a different example. For example, in China, what happened is companies like WeChat, for example, they changed the experience from chatting into basically money managers. Because as you know, or may heard, that in China, you can use WeChat to pay, right? So WeChat did is that all of this wealth of data, they understood how clients are spending. And in that case, they came up with something like, okay, why not introduce a money manager? Why not, for example, expose these type of clients to different type of promotions, enroll them in insurance plans, enroll them in different type of programs, connect them with specific banks that serve their needs. So now you can see the difference between the two scenarios. Now, the first one, we're thinking about optimization, but it doesn't mean that we're getting the best results. On the second, we created something new. We created new business models. We basically shifted the dynamics, and I think if we can do this for sales organizations or consulting firms, we're definitely thinking from that perspective, I think we're going to achieve a lot.
Fully agree with you. But what's the right starting point for a sales team who wants to use AI now? So where should they start? What they should do?
Today, maybe my answer to you would be split into two sections or two sides of this. The first, where I have seen some organizations are ahead of others, I mean, some organizations, for example, they're providing their people, their consultants, their salespeople with a lot of tools and make it easy for them. So what they have to do is basically get trained on these tools, whether this is at the targeting stage, whether this is at the preparation, as we mentioned, of the proposal or shaping the value proposition to their clients. And these are pretty much set, these guys, because they have to fit within the context of their organizations. My advice would be to also the other people who has handy tools. Like, for example, if you're using Office, then there is Copilot. If you're using ChatGPT, and I'm sure that most of the people are using it.
By the way, when you're saying Copilot, I know that PwC using Microsoft Copilot.
Yes.
So do you have any, from your work experience, any case that, okay, it helps me my work?
Absolutely. A recent example that we had a major proposal that we have to work with, and for a client who speaks Arabic. So the team was so much busy, attending the meeting, understanding, preparing the value proposition and all of that. And one day was left for us to submit our proposal. And all of a sudden, someone came and told me, listen, that, by the way, we have to submit certain sections of the proposal in Arabic. And, and of course, that was like, so what do we have to do? I mean, it was not easy just to reach out to an agency who can help us translate in a very short period of time. And we started just like a little bit to struggle. Okay, what guys we do? I mean, some of us would take, we split the slides and some people translate and all of that, which might be time consuming because we want to focus on delivering the value.
Of course.
And here is something that I just learned throughout, by experiencing, because we migrated to Microsoft and Copilot, and I'm just testing and find that there is some sort of a button on the side of the PowerPoint that if you click on that, and instead of translating a sentence, it will ask you, do you want to translate the whole presentation?
Oh.
And that for me, okay. So just with a click, the whole presentation was translated into Arabic with the right alignment because, it's different from English. You have to...
So it's convert entire presentation...
It converted the entire presentation to Arabic, but at the same time did the right alignment. So basically picture were set in the right way. And we were shocked and surprised, and that was really amazing.
Because you don't need to spend entire nights translating documents. And how many? It was 20, 30 pages? Or?
No, it was actually about 100 and something. So, yes. So what we did, of course, I mean, I don't think that everything is perfect. We have to basically go back and reflect. But instead of translating, we just focus on terminologies. What terminologies that you have to make sure that these terminologies matches with what the client is sort of used to. And I think I would say that saved us time. I'm not going to talk about the money, but definitely saved money.
Let's be frank. Sometimes we are talking about a deal that need to be submitted in the morning. Most probably, it's always last minute. And sometimes it's deal make or break. I mean, something that sounds trivial. I had experience in Central East Europe that we have a lot of languages and everything needs to be localized. So it's time consuming. And sometimes those small things that looks like a small and trivial, they're deal make or break.
No, absolutely. And by the way, what I really liked about this is that instead of us complying with what the client wants, which is translating specific section, we end up translating the whole presentation, the whole proposition. And the client felt that we care. The client felt that these guys, they want to basically make sure that all of us understand what's their position, and it's not just about submitting a document. So the second part, and this is, by the way, if you are in an organization that's not as mature as others, use these tools. Use them for your benefit. I'm always saying that. Use, for example, ChatGPT to fine-tune your content. And here is basically the trick. Don't just use it and copy and paste. What I would advise people, just try to read what these tools recommend. Each of them has its own flavor in terms of articulating the message. But more importantly, make sure that they are not so formal and they are not so liquid in terms of the message is gone. Put your own thing, put your own personal touch. And this is basically where you're going to create the maximum impact.
Definitely, fully agree with you, Walid. But now, you led transformations across markets in Oracle, SAP, and now in PwC. So when you talk about transformation, what does it actually mean beyond adapting new technologies or restructuring? What does it mean, really?
Okay, so transformation sometimes, and I think this is where it creates the most impact, is when basically an organization try to change the way it creates value. And whether this is for its people, whether this is for the clients or the partners. And why is this a challenge? Because it's typically not about the technology. And we've seen so many projects failed. They introduced a lot of technologies, thinking that this is the transformation, and this is basically where they missed the point. Now, when you create a value, this can basically entail a lot of things. And what I have seen, you can mostly what I have seen from my experience is that leadership might have the right mindset. They want to create new business model. They want to basically build new capabilities within their organization or introduce new product to their consumers or constituents, or even like a government. They want to introduce new services to their constituents. Now, a great example that we can see like here in Dubai, how we have seen all of these transformations, how we have seen that, for example, a government's trying to get services to the fingertip of the citizen. And I believe this is a great achievement. But let's use this as an example because this is a great success model. When you want to create value, the leadership has the right mindset, but not just like that. They don't leave this at their level. They basically take it down to the front line. They take it to every individual in every single organization, in every single department, So that understanding of the transformation has been taken all the way to that person who even opens the door to you to enter to do your service, So the way I see this, it's a vision, it's a leader mindship, it's an alignment. It's how you basically glue all of these elements together to make sure that you create that value. And this is the essence of transformation.
Fully agree. Well said, Walid. Now, why do most transformation stall halfway? Is it a leadership? Is it a culture? Clarity? What it is?
I think it's a mix of all of what you said. It's about the leadership. It's about the culture. It's about the clarity. It's about the people. To give you an example, you can come up as a leader with a vision, and basically you want to take that vision, to whether you're government or whether a bank or whatever, whatever type of client. But if this vision does not fit the culture, then there is a gap. If this vision is not clear enough so that the simple person, can understand it. And I'd like to say that if a 12-year-old or a 10 years old can understand what you're trying to do, then you are successful in terms of communicating your vision to everyone. And this is the magic of really taking transformation into new heights. So these type of clash between all of these elements sometimes lead to these type of I would say shortage in coming or achieving these type of vision. A good leader with a good vision has to make sure that he communicates his vision clearly. He really understands the culture. He really understands how he can embed his vision in that culture. And more importantly, he has a clarity on how to execute this and see it through. That's why it's vision. if you have to see it through all the way till execution. And something that I typically even do with my team, something that maybe can be useful also for other organizations or consultants or software sales. A key to your success is that you have to envision every engagement. You have to envision that engagement from day one till the closure. You have to envision it from day one till you deliver. Envisioning and having that clarity all the time, because this is how you're going to keep pushing your team, how organizations going to keep pushing their constituents or their executives or department managers on how to achieve.
And what signal tells you that organization is ready to transform versus just talking about it?
Okay. Something I always like to use sort of like certain words, so maybe to get the meaning closer to the listener. And I think if I were to summarize this, it's all about ownership. Okay. And let me explain that. Some people say that a successful project, and I hear it a lot from my consultants, we need to have the sponsor, the project sponsor, and all of that. Sponsorship is a key. Sponsorship is a key success factor and all of that. I'm sure that you have seen this in many presentations and many consultants are talking about it, but it's not really sponsorship. It's ownership. And ownership goes hand to hand with leadership. If you are a great leader, you have to own it. You have to communicate it. You have to go to the frontliner, to make sure that all of this is clear. So that's what I call is the clarity in this type of understanding, and how you can take this forward versus just talking, because talking is easy and we can talk in the boardrooms and the minute everybody leaves, nothing happens. But if you basically have this type of ownership, you're going to make sure that the minute that you step out of the door, you're going to go to the relevant people and make sure that they basically execute on your vision.
Great. Now, let's wrap it up. We talk about deals, AI transformation on different levels. If you had to leave one message to leaders navigating all of this right now, so what's that one shift they need to make to stay relevant in the next 5 years?
Okay. I would keep a stress on something that when you deal with clients, don't push your products or service. And it's not just about showing those flashy ROI slides and all of that. Live with your clients. Understand their pain points. Understand their culture. Understand their basically ambition and aspiration. Be with them. Be their partner. And the minute that you do that, you're going to take them through the journey. And both of you will be aligned to achieve that common objective, And more importantly, whenever you feel that there is a change of course or you need to pivot, you have to be agile and you have to be flexible also to adjust accordingly, not just to stick with what you guys defined and agreed upon at the beginning, but you have to show this type of flexibility in order to achieve these results. Now, one more important thing that I want to mention, since we mentioned a couple of times about the AI and its usage, try to use AI not just as a tool to enhance your content or your emails or your messages, but try to use it to help you make better decisions.
Thank you, Walid. It was really good.
Thank you again for having me, and appreciate it. Appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If this conversation gave you a new way to think about deals, leadership, or transformation, share it with someone who is building what's next. And don't forget to subscribe for real stories, real results, no fluff.